Hello there. Welcome back to the booth here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. That's Simon Gertz and I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. Welcome back. We've got one more round of booster draft to bring you before we transition back over to constructed, which of course is modern at this event. In the feature match area, 2 players sitting at 9-1, perhaps just ahead of the leaderboard. Down there, John Stern from Canada playing for Team Astrop West. And we had a chance to see him on the draft wall there. He's on Merfolk. Other side of the table, green-red in the hands of hometown hero. He's not actually from Bilbao, but he's from Spain. Javier Dominguez playing for Team Connected Company. Again, both players in 9-1. A lot on the line as they transition back into modern after this. One more round of draft. Let's head on down. It's time for round number 11 here from Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertz. Last round of draft for the tournament here, of course, after today. Well, it's Pro Tour Sunday. We play constructed on Sunday. We're going to be moving over to modern after this. So these players have to buckle down. One more round with these 40 card decks. They want to try to escape their booster draft with a clean 3-0 record and set themselves up to make a nice run in constructed. We've got from Spain, Javier Dominguez. On the other side of the table, that's John Stern from Team Astrop West. Javier's playing for Team Connected Company. Of course, you'll recognize Javier. He was the runner-up at the World Championship, eventually losing a rather epic match to William Huey Jensen. And, well, looks like he's still firing on all cylinders here as he is 9-1 at the Pro Tour, really putting on a show in his home country of Spain. Fathomfleet Firebrand kicks things off. And it feels like we're back in Ixalan here, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is actually almost the traditional limited magic we know from the first set. It's also a very classical red-green dinosaur deck against the blue-green Merfolk deck, which actually has quite a lot of River Herald spoons, so not as weak as maybe some of the other Rivals of Ixalan Merfolk decks.
John Stern trying to decide what he wants to do with the Deeproot Warrior. Well, so far, not a whole lot.
No, and you can tell that he's up to something by the fact that he didn't block last turn. He was He was looking to take 2 damage rather than trade because he has plans with that creature, and they might not be strictly aggressive. He might just want to grow the warrior with River Herald's Boon or go into a racing situation.
Yeah, he has 2 copies of River Herald's Boon in the deck. This is a pretty productive turn for John. He is using up his mana and adding a lot to the board. He's going to play Jade Bear to put a +1/+1 counter on the Mistcloak Herald, and that's going to give him a 2/2 unblockable. But John is in a precarious position here because he is trying to set up a race against an opponent who seems quite eager to race on the other side of the table, and that requires some specific calculations and really puts you to the test on knowing exactly what your opponent might be up to.
And that's actually one of the most aggressive draws that Javier's deck can come up with. He is the more late-game oriented dinosaur deck. He has a few things like Enrage going for him. He has 3 Hunt the Week, so the late game should favor him, but it looks like he's actually pulling ahead as early as turn 3.
And look at this. A follow-up play that he would have absolutely loved to have the option for last turn. Shake the Foundations. He does get value off of it, though. He's going to kill the Jade Bear. Fine, it's a body down. He also is going to draw a card off of it because that's what the card does. And he got an Enrage trigger as well from his Frill Deathspitter. So all told, a pretty productive card there.
Absolutely. The one thing he didn't get was the Mistcloak Herald.
That's
because
right.
John Stern anticipated something like this happening and didn't want to have more than one toughness creature on the battlefield.
In addition to that, I think that he maybe needed to hit a land drop there as well, which he did. So Jadecraft Artisan's going to be the play from John Stern. And again, the race is very much on, but he's got to be careful here. So he is going to jam. It's a big hit. It's going to knock Javier Dominguez down to 12 and pass the turn back. But the shields, they are down. He's just got the 3/3 on blocks.
And now Javier has the potential to use Hunt the Weak, but not for John Stern's blocker. So he has to decide if that's worth it, if that's something he wants, which creature to target. For example, do you want to still attack with both of your creatures, or do you now play a bit more defensively? You could, for example, get an Enrage trigger with Hunt the Weak and take out John Stern's Unblockable Herald.
Man, Javier really looks like he's feeling it. Look at, I think he recognizes what an important juncture this is. So I think he's just going to take out the Mistcloaked Herald here. And that's another trigger for Enrage. They're really starting to add up.
He's also now found himself a 3 toughness creature, which means the second Hunt the Weak he's holding will be able to take out any 3/3.
Yeah, he's already facing down one of those, so he's got a target for it. He may just need to sit back here, as trading off that 3 toughness creature leaves him in a less advantageous position with Hunt the Weak. The problem that he's facing, or I think the thing that he's going through in his mind here, though, is, you know, he was trying to raise. I think he viewed himself as the aggressor, and he's going to have to maybe pump the brakes a little bit here, and that can be hard to do.
But I think if he wanted to raise, he should have cast Hunt the Weak targeting his pirate, because then he would have been able to attack with both creatures. John would have still been at 11, but you're not happy taking 6 when you're at 11. So I would have John expected to block, and then the board would have been a 3/3 or a 3/2 against the opponent's 2/2. But here,
wow, is he attacking?
I don't get this. It almost looks like Javier.
Like, did he realize this after the fact?
It looks like he made his decision to Hunt the Weak, and then only realized what implications this had for combat.
Yeah, and John is pretty happy to just trade off here. And, you know, one of the things that Javier might have also been thinking is, well, look, I get this Enrage trigger. You know, it's kind of short-term thinking.
Yeah, but it's overthinking.
This is a much worse position now.
I think this was why he was in the tank, why he was contemplating what to do, and somehow I don't feel this was the best solution for him.
Yeah, this was kind of a middle ground line, right? Like, one line involved doing what he did, but then passing the turn back. The other line involved the line that you suggested, which is more aggressive, which is to put the counter on the Fathom Fleet Firebrand and enable attack with both creatures. But he kind of took the middle, and well, that's not something you want to do very often.
There was actually another line, which was to cast the Bonded Horncrest in his hand, and just go for a bit more of a late game approach.
So John, in a little bit of an awkward position here, is going to attack. Then he's going to cast 2 creatures, but one of them Storm Sculptor, which has to pick up a creature, and he feels like he'd rather have the 1/1 unblockable Mistcloaked Herald, so he's going to actually pick up his Deeproot Warrior. It's not going to be able to attack next turn. Pretty clunky turn there, though. He did put out 4 unblockable.
Yeah, but now, once again, how do you manage this race? Do you actually take another hit, or are you blocking? Because if you're blocking, then suddenly you only have 1 unblockable damage left.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think he's going to be able to block here. It is somewhat difficult for Javier to kill him from this position, though he can. Buccaneers Bravado would get the job done if John didn't block.
$10-7? Yep.
You hear Javier double check the life totals there, as they are really critical this game.
2 cards. Yep.
John's tapped out, so he just gets to answer questions and say, what are you going to do about it?
Attack. No blocks. 2. 5.
John snaps it off. No blocks. I'm losing to that. If you have it, no problem.
But I think that's the right play by both players. So now Javier has the 5/5 in play, which is threatening lethal next turn. He has a supreme target for Hunt the Weak, and John basically needs a bounce spell. Bounce spell would be tremendous here.
Yeah, devastating. In fact, 4 damage to knock you down to 6. What does John have in his hand? Comena Speaker. We know about the Deeproot Warrior and River Herald's Boon.
Yep. Go.
He can survive, right? 4 mana for Hunt the Weak, kill something, chump block.
Yeah, and then
he has
he's
lethal.
threatening lethal. Yeah,
so this actually does work for John Stern if Javier has nothing other than Hunt the Weak.
But also it depends how Javier plays this. He can force a chump block still, or at least an awkward block, but could, for example, hunt the weak one of the unblockable creatures. I like this attack because the Horncrest is lethal even without help.
So this will force a block.
And note how John doesn't have green mana untapped. So
That's
actually,
right.
I think he had River Herald's Boon since the beginning of the game, and he just didn't have time or an opportunity to cast it.
But now we're going to see Hunt the Weak. But if he wants to save his Horncrest, he will actually have to kill. He's going to lose his Horncrest here, right? No, it will be one clear of it. My bad. Wow.
Yeah, this all actually ended up being quite perfect.
Yes, it did. Because John was really all in on that plan of using River Herald's Boon plus his 2 unblockables to get him dead. Now he's got to kill him in 2 turns, so he needs something to block with or a bounce spell. But this is super interesting because Javier Dominguez, of course, cannot attack.
And he just took
until
3
next
because
turn.
the River Herald's Boon
Oh my
just
God.
shortened the clock.
Is this actually just going to work out for John anyway?
I think it will. The downside of Bonded Horncrest is just punishing Javier here, and I think it's coming back to that turn 4 that Javier, in my opinion, just misplayed. You can't hunt the weak there and then trade your creatures because of how your hand looks like. He didn't give himself the best outs to win with Enrage and this Bonded Horncrest, as we can see here.
And you hear Javier, he just put his hands up in the air and said, I'm just making sure I'm not missing anything. But the Forerunner doesn't do anything here. And I don't even know if you want to show him a dinosaur. Maybe he's just going to look through his library to see if there's just something that he's forgetting.
But he's dead next turn.
He's just dead anyway.
His library is irrelevant.
I agree. Well, Javier Dominguez loses that game to John Stern. He pieces it together. He had the win set up. But then since Javier ended up whittling his board down to just the Bonded Horncrest, he did not have a lethal threat. And John went to plan B. He said, all right, I was going to put 2 counters on 2 of my unblockables. I'll put them all on this one. And I'm going to clock you at 3 a turn. You're at 6. Go. And Javier needed to draw a removal spell there. He's going to lose the game. And he did. So that's game 1 going to John Stern. We've got a lot more limited magic to cover right after these messages.
Head down to your local store and buy a box of Rivals of Ixalan to receive an Alt Art Foil Rare Captain's Hook. Limit 1 per customer. Visit rivalsofixalan.com to find a store.
Check out Rivals of Ixalan Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com.
Welcome back to the feature match area here in Bilbao, Spain. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Simon Gertzen. We are in the last round of limited play here. This is round number 11. And we're going to stay on our main table here. We've got Javier Dominguez facing off against John Stern. Both players at a stellar 9-1 record coming into this round and looking to finish strong and limited before transitioning over to modern for next round. Crazy first game. I felt like the advantage bar was kind of all over the place. It was a tough one to follow.
It came down to the final points of damage. It was basically one damage more or less swung the game in John Stern's favor.
That's right. John has a nice start here. 1 drop into 2 drop. You don't see this every time, but Mistcloaked Herald, that's a nice little clock that John can also augment later on. But Stormfleet Aerialist, really good 2 drop, is going to apply a lot of pressure. Although now that I say that, Javier Dominguez has the answer for both of them in 1 card with the Archer there. He's going to shoot down the Herald and have a blocker now for the Aerialist. What a strong swing for Javier Dominguez.
Yeah, that's probably the best 3-drop you can play in this format against this start.
Oh my God.
Dealing with 2 evasive threats at the cost of 3 mana.
That has to feel so good. Just taking those both out of the equation with 1 card.
And that's what I think Javier should be aiming for. Just play a defensive game. Use especially your Forerunner of the Empire and these other ways of dealing with small creatures.
But we're not done yet.
No, of course not.
Look at this. Shapers of Nature for John Stern. This is one where it's really funny. You and I have been talking about this. I don't think that John's going to be able to block the Cherished Hatchling here. It's just too risky.
The fear is too big.
Right, so flavor text, maybe not. And he's going to cast Ranging Raptors post-combat.
And funnily enough, this was kind of a bluff.
It was, yeah. He would have been able to finish off the Aerialist with the Raptors.
But if the Shaper blocks, then he's trading Hatchling plus Raptors for Shapers of Nature, which is fine, but definitely not what you want to do.
Yeah, you know, I think that John probably was thinking, what if that Bonded Horncrest shows up again?
No, it was very smart not to block there.
Yeah.
It's just funny how he wouldn't even have been
I mean, it would have
punished.
been a disaster if the Horncrest was in hand for Javier, which, by the way, it is now. He
just in time.
Yeah. River Darter was the play for John Stern, probably out of the sideboard. Take a look at the deck list in a second here to confirm. But
he's very Merfolk heavy, so it might be a main deck card, but it's not a premium common or anything. I like it in this matchup, though. This ability
interesting.
of River Darter not being able to be blocked by dinosaurs is surprisingly relevant.
So he actually has 2 of them in his list. They're both in the sideboard. Wouldn't be surprised to see both of them here, though. And there it is, Bonded Horncrest. Simon, we did it.
Well, Javier did it.
Yeah, but we didn't think we'd see this ever. Wow.
Oh, okay, we can't call it flavor text anymore.
No, we thought that this thing was something that only happened in, you know, magical Christmas land, but we've made it. We saw a dinosaur fight to protect its cherished hatchling.
I'm going to move it up my pick order.
Okay, well, let's not get too excited, Simon. But that was actually a big swing because Shapers of Nature, that's a continual source of advantage for John that's now gone.
Yeah, and note that this is really only because Javier drew a 5/5 dinosaur. Otherwise, it would still have not been too relevant. But now, of course, Javier in a great spot. Also, you want to keep the Merfolk's board relatively small to not enable any kind of blowouts with River Herald's Boon. John doesn't even have a land here.
Yeah, this is probably what led him to start blocking, is that he recognized, I'm going to start falling behind either way. I better start using the cards while I have them. And the prospect of him drawing a land and starting to use Shapers of Nature multiple times started to diminish. He decided just to block.
Also, when you're holding 5 non-lands, you're not really too interested in spending your mana to draw additional cards.
Right.
You want to empty your hand first.
Yeah, ultimately, Shapers of Nature is very powerful, but also it's a little clunky. I mean, 4 mana for a +1/+1 counter is not exactly a bargain.
Yeah, it's funny how this is a must-kill card, but actually we see it activated, we see it quite rarely.
Yeah, it's true.
maybe a bit of a win more ability. If you're ahead, of course, it's just absolutely crushing. Something I wanted to note is the Golden Guardian. That's in John Stern's hand. He's actually not main decking it, deciding that a 4/4 defender doesn't really fit into his deck, especially because the ability of fighting with your own small Merfolk is not all that exciting.
Man, that card is so sweet, though.
It can be incredibly good.
But he's probably right. When you're running multiple copies of 1/1s, I mean, he's got 4 or 5 1/1s in this deck.
The 1/1 unblockable deck and the Golden Guardian deck don't have much overlap.
Right.
In the right deck, Golden Guardian is insane. Of course, as a colorless card, it's also a very high pick because most decks are happy to have a Golden Guardian in the deck.
I mean, John's running 3 copies of Mist-Cloaked Herald in this deck.
No, I think it's the correct choice. It takes a bit of restraint, but I completely agree.
So he's going to actually kick things off with Jadecraft Artisan here. Also, we saw on end step, John used River Herald's Boon to bolster up that River Darter.
So it's 4 and 4? Yeah.
So here we see for the first time the ability on River Darter become relevant. Bonded Horncrest, the Raptor are not going to be able to block, and the other creatures at the moment only represent 3 power, and the largest toughness is 4. So that's kind of what John Stern was playing towards. He didn't want Javier to have a good block for the River Darter.
Yeah, and he did set that up nicely. And in this particular turn, the Jadecraft Artisan also pumped the Aerialist. So that led that to be able to attack through the Atzican Archer. And that was a big swing. John just got in for 8 that turn.
Yeah, very nice. And Javier, of course, didn't want to chump block. He's relying on Hunt the Weak to deal with opponent's creatures.
By the way, he's clearing his way for a massive assault here as well. He takes down the Jadecraft Artisan, the only blocker left from John Stern, using Hunt the Weak. He even gets a land out of the deal. Oh boy, that gave him the City's Blessing too?
He drafted 3 Hunt the Weeks. So that's kind of what his deck is about.
13? Oh boy. That's a huge attack.
How much is this? 3
I think
plus
it's 13.
4 plus 5. Yeah, I don't know if the 1/4 will attack because it's actually quite a good blocker.
Sure.
Depends kind of how the clock will shape up.
He'll have to settle for 12.
Only 12.
5, 9, plus 3.
I like not taking too much risk here. You would be trading 1 damage for 2 as it stands. Although there's a good chance that John will not be able to attack back at all, but then you're kind of winning. So I like keeping like a 1/4 reach here.
John has his hands full in game 2 here. Javier Dominguez surging into the red zone and putting John Stern down to 6 last turn. And John's mana issues, he's missed that 4th land drop a couple of times, have been really problematic for him here.
Javier Dominguez, by the way, is holding some pretty sweet cards. Not only Jadelight Ranger, but also Polyraptor.
Wow. He's got Polyraptor going in this deck,
well,
too?
He has a Forerunner. I think if you have a Forerunner of the Empire, you always play Polyraptor.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, well, this could get interesting. Now, John attacked in with the River Darter. Javier said, yep, no blocks. Took 4, and now he's got Deadeye Righauler to set back Javier, whatever John decides his best attacker is. Probably just the Horncrest.
He doesn't have a good block for the Horncrest.
Yeah, but he actually does have a decent block for the Stormfleet Swashbuckler with that Aerialist.
That's actually quite a good block, yeah.
Yeah. All right, he decided on the Raptors. That also knocks the +1/+1 counter off of it. Perhaps trying to limit Javier's options as it comes to that Bonded Horncrest, locking him into at least 2 attackers.
That's a good point, and because he's on 6, he can take a hit with the Horncrest, which is kind of what I expect based on what he's playing. You can tell that John is playing very methodical, like almost tactical, in the sense that he's super aware of all the power and toughness combinations on the board and how it interacts with his life total. I think John has been managing the clock of the game, the race situation, very, very nicely. It gave him the win in game 1, and we see the same happening here. Now, if it will lead to a success, to a victory, is a completely different question. It doesn't really look great for him, but I like how John is navigating this limited game.
Here's Jade Light Ranger after John goes to 1 from the Bonded Horncrest.
Yep.
2 lands. Oh, Forest was good.
Oh,
I called it.
man, you said it.
Well, he needed the Forest to cast the Raptor again. So.
Yes, he did. Perhaps the second land could have been something else for Javier, but he did clear the Moth out of the way. And, hey, Jade Light Ranger is as lethal as any other creature on the battlefield here for Dominguez.
And 7 is a bit too much, I believe. John's turn doesn't have a true evasive creature on the battlefield as well, so...
yeah, 2 blockers at least for that River Darter.
Not even a 1 with the wind would be enough, because there is still a reach creature, and he can't put 7 power on a single creature.
Dominguez is just going to play it safe and chump block with the Jade Light Ranger. And John says, you got it. He's going to pick up his permanence, and that means we're going to get a game 3. A lot of action in the feature match area this round, by the way, as we close out the limited portion of the tournament. Pascal Viren has won his match 2-1 over Kim Stroh. And that is Pascal remaining undefeated.
Kind of.
Ish.
Yeah. Well, it is technically true.
Yes. 9-0-2 is Pascal Viren's record now.
That means he's a 6-0 drafter. And he plays a really sweet blue-red deck.
That draws
if he plays it a bit faster, he has a really good chance to top 8.
Looks like Elias Watsfeld is getting aggressive here with his Merfolk deck. I see a Merfolk Mistbinder sitting down there, pumping up 3 others. He's done this all off of 2 mana somehow.
Very impressive, yeah. We are looking at 2 of Europe's finest. Elias has actually been a bit less active on the Pro Tour and on the GP circuit, but I just love his attitude. He knows that this is a serious game, but also that you have to enjoy what you're doing. So Elias has one of the best mental games in Magic, I feel.
Elias Watsfeld, apparently limited all-star here in Ixalan block as well. He actually has yet to lose in the combination of Ixalan and now Rivals of Ixalan, and he's playing to be 12-0 in draft matches here at the PT. That is absurd.
That is super impressive. I can't stress enough how impressive that is. Winning matches in limited is one thing. Going up to that 65 to that 70% match win percentage limit is doable, but simply because of how the cards fall, how different the formats are, you can be at some tough tables. Going 12-0 in subsequent Pro Tours is a super impressive feat.
Man, this is a savage Merfolk deck he has going
also that.
Goodness.
Kind of burying Oliver here, who is one of the few drafters who's apparently comfortable with drafting green-white. Not something that we see a lot in this format.
Yeah, the Atsakan Seer probably part of the equation there, as it is a powerful incentive to play that color combo.
But what green-white wants to do is it wants to get a big lifelinker. The Seer is not that big, and it wants to put up big blockers like Suncaster Pterodon. Big blockers don't help you when your opponent's creatures are largely unblockable.
Well, Oliver Pollock-Ruttman is trying to grind his way back into this thing. That's against here is a 3-4 with lifelink right now.
I think Oliver is also trying to represent Divine Verdict.
Oh, it does look like it, doesn't it?
He has 5 mana. He only taps 1 of them. Something is up here.
See aggressive urge in hand for Watsfeld.
Elias really likes aggro decks. He plays some aggressive limited decks, as you can see, and I was actually expecting him to be on an aggressive constructed deck as well. But no, he brought a pretty crazy blue-white control deck to this tournament.
Yeah, he did. But he has no chill in limited. Look at this. Just everything sideways. You figure it out.
Yeah, you know, it's these young guys.
Slash of Talons, but there's a response. Aggressive Urge actually is going to get that Mistbinder big enough to survive it. And that's going to add a lot of extra power from that one card.
Talk about the perfect answer.
No kidding. And yes, that is in fact a lethal attack as Oliver Pollock-Rotman extends the hand and Elias Watsfeld 12-0 in Ixalan.
6-0 this weekend in Rivals, 6-0 in Albuquerque.
That is really impressive.
This is a mastery of a format that is not where it's not easy to get those wins and where you can't just draft one strategy. You really have to understand limited at a high level.
Wow. Really impressive stuff for Elias there. Now his record, he's going to need to run it up though with that blue-white deck you mentioned because he is now 7-3-1, and that is precariously on the verge of not being eligible for top 8. He'll probably have to 5-0.
When I said his constructed deck is sweet, I wasn't so sure if it's actually good.
Yeah, sweet does not indicate powerful necessarily.
Maybe a bit too playful, maybe a bit too obscure, but we will see. Could have also just had a rough run, some bad matchups. Blue-white control, not a bad choice, I would say, at this Pro Tour.
Okay, this means Game 3 of Javier Dominguez versus John Stern is now underway.
And what a start. What a Merfolk start. Comena Speaker on turn 1.
Yes.
Clearly a 2-2 already.
Giltgrove Stalker's the follow-up, but this is where Javier is going to need to get something going. He's going to need it going quickly.
Being on the play is a huge advantage in this matchup in particular.
Absolutely.
I think the Hunt the Week deck, if you're on the draw, you don't want to trade, but you have to trade. And then if you want to tap 4 mana, you're also getting punished by a lot of the tricks in the format. If you're on the play, it's different. You just play a Raptor and you Hunt the Week. Maybe you even get some attacks in.
Interesting play for Dominguez here. He had the option to just play Fathom Fleet Firebrand to potentially trade for Comena Speaker, but he decided to use Mutiny, which is a little bit safer. The shields were down for John Stern. He knew I can get a creature dead right now. And it's also a mana-efficient play for him because he has Commune with Dinosaurs.
True. I think the main reason for that play is actually the fear of River Herald's Boon. If you play a 2-2 here, you're clearly losing the race by a fair margin. You can't block Giltgrove Stalker, you block Comena Speaker, and River Herald's Boon almost wins the game on the spot.
Yes. Much safer play here from Dominguez. He's going to get attacked down to 16 here from Stern, and Stern's going to follow up with a nice one, Jungleborn Pioneer. Ooh. Thrashing Brontodon, though, for Dominguez is a potential brick wall if John doesn't have a way to get it out of the way.
Yeah, and right now he actually doesn't have an unblockable creature, so even something like Deadeye Recaller is a bit of a tricky card. He would have to suicide one of his creatures into the Brontodon, or attack with everything to force some damage, but then he loses a valuable creature.
Yeah, I think John is going to set up the Jadecraft Artisan here. That does allow him to attack cleanly into the Thrashing Brontodon, as it would be a chump block, and there's no way Javier is doing that. So he's going to fall to 12. And then play 2 creatures on turn 4. You know, this draws from both players have been quite strong. They've been using up their mana and affecting the board in meaningful ways each turn.
Quite evenly matched, I have to say. The speed with which Javier played his 2 2-drops makes me think, as an opponent, that he didn't have a choice this turn. He doesn't have a 4-drop. Because he planned it all out. That's, of course, possible. But I would have the read that he didn't have a difficult decision there.
See if John can use that. Oh, he's got his own copy of Hunt the Week. And down goes the Thrashing Brontodon, clearing the way for the two-powered attackers. John is going to wisely keep the Jadecraft Artisan at bay, as he would be trading it off for either of the 2 blockers, and decided he doesn't want to do that.
How do you like some of your own medicine?
Indeed. Who's the weak now, says John Stern. Also, he is forcing massive pressure.
Get that walking Hunt the Week out of there. Cherished hatchling.
Wow, our evaluation has swung wildly in the course of this match.
Just like walking Chupacabra is a is a walking impale.
Impale, yeah.
This is a walking hump.
Clearly. Okay, and now he's got Overgrown Armasaur, and that's kind of his hope, right? That's the card he's put a lot of his board stability on. He needs to find a way to get it out of the way.
But there
John Stern.
There is a 4/4 on John Stern's side of the board.
Yes, he will still be able to attack. Oh, and look at his hand. Cancel and Deadeye Rig Hauler.
It's unfortunate, actually, that he hasn't had better opportunities to utilize these cards. He's kind of stuck on 2 blue. That's not the end of the world, but he knows he won't be able to cast cancel and a blue spell for a long time. And what you really want to do is you want to bounce the big dinosaurs. You don't want to bounce the small pirates.
You have how many? How many cards do you have? 2. Yeah, this one.
You good?
All right, so John's just going to trade off. That's going to net a Sapperling for Dominguez. But John can then just bounce, either of the 2 creatures left over using the Deadeye Rig Hauler.
I would actually just bounce the Sapperling here.
Oh, yeah?
First of all, you want to get on the board. Your current board is not good enough, I believe. I think you would rather hold on to cancel later because you can't afford to just play passively here with such a weak board.
He's going to take the more tempo-oriented round, forcing Javier Dominguez to replay.
Okay.
But it's actually going to be pretty easy for him because the other card in his hand, is Hunt the Week, and he can actually just do both this turn thanks to the land drop.
Yeah, it was a close call. Of course, John had not much information about what was in Javier's hand. I just figured the 2 mana of Fathomflate Firebrand was not really a critical prize for Javier to play.
Well, and Andrea Mengucci and his beloved Snubhorn Sentries got the job done. 6-0 in draft this weekend for the Italian. That moves him into 9-2 for a record, so looking really good.
Known a bit more as a constructed player, but showing that his strategy may be a bit peculiar. Snubhorn Sentry, almost forcing Ascent decks, but also being willing to play, for example, Green-White Ascent, really paid off this weekend.
So this is an interesting turn of events here. Javier Dominguez went for a second copy of Hunt the Week here to try to take down one of the threats on the other side, but John did fire off cancel. Now he's drawn River Herald's Boon for the turn and is looking at his options. He's firmly ahead on life totals. He just needs to find a way to punch through the board that Javier Dominguez has put forth and get those last few points of damage in.
And I'm pretty sure he will get some of the traits he's looking for. Javier is still trying to play around some cards, but he's slowly running out of options because he will just have to block here. And that's actually...
This does not work out well for Javier.
This does not play around a River Herald Spoon at all.
No. Oh, well, maybe I'm wrong if that's about the card in hand there for John. I thought I saw it when he drew it, but I feel like he would have fired it off there most likely. Now the Stampede attack for 4?
Yeah. 4. 6.
Jeez. Javier is aggro. No, that is a River Herald Spoon in hand for Stern.
It looked like a prime opportunity to use it. I agree, Marshall.
Yeah, there was only 2 power blocking. He could have put 1 counter on that and then 1 on, say his Deeproot Warrior.
He also would have dealt an additional point of damage that way.
Yeah.
He would have forced Javier to at least keep open 2 mana to trade with the Warrior on defense. So I liked where this was going.
Really curious why John didn't pull the trigger there, but maybe he's just waiting for a better opportunity to set up the River Herald Spoon.
This block is very easy for Javier. You always block the 1/1 because River Herald Spoon is always a possibility. Of course, John signaled that he didn't have it, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't play around it when you can.
Yeah, this is awkward for Stern because ideally he'd like to get in for a lot of damage. Is he actually going to put 2 counters on the hexproof creature? It doesn't really do much.
So there are 2 ways of playing this. This is the value play. Okay, that's also a good value card. And you now have 2 lethal creatures. With the Shapers, you're actually representing 3 lethal creatures. So that's huge.
Yep. And in fact, Javier just played his land for the turn. And that just shows John Stern that he has the win on the board. And that's going to do it. John Stern is 10-1 here in Bilbao. Wow, really putting on a show, and he's going to now transition with mono red in Modern. Normally, we see John play Affinity. That's kind of the deck that you would expect.
I think he's played Burn before as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, I thought about it last night, and I was thinking John is one of these players that actually plays primarily Affinity, but not like 100% Frank Karsten style. There is no other deck. Or Patrick Dickman, there is no other deck because Splinter Twin is banned.
Yes, exactly. So a great way to finish the round there as we see John Stern improve yet further. And he is going to be working his way, of course, into the constructed portion now. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break. But when we come back from it, we've got great content for you for the lunch hour, or not hour, the lunch break, I should say, for the players, including Round the Table. They're going to cover Rivals Draft with Maria Paul and
my
BDM.
favorite feature, by the way.
Yeah, that's going to put a kind of a recap on what we saw here this weekend as we transition away from Limited for the rest of the tournament. Inside R&D, I know a lot of you like that. We're going to talk about tribes on that, and then we've also got a new Enter the Battlefield about Seth Manfield. So for all of that and more, right after these messages.